Hello, everyone, and welcome to Poetry in Brief. Before we talk about our theme and introduce our invited readers, I've asked Sandra Levy here today to share a special poem that won the Academy of American Poet Prize in 2020. The poem is by Renee Good. And after she reads, I'd like us to just take a moment of silence to reflect on Renee's life and honor her and her family. I'll turn it over to you, Sandra.
Hey. On Learning to Dissect Fetal Pigs by Renee Good. I want back my rocking chairs, solipsist sunsets, and coastal jungle sounds that are tercets from cicadas and pentameter from the hairy legs of cockroaches. I've donated Bibles to thrift stores, mashed them in plastic trash bags with an acidic Himalayan salt lamp. The post-baptism Bibles, the ones plucked from street corners from the meaty hands of zealots, the dumbed down, easy to read, parasitic kind. Remember more the slick rubber smell of high-gloss biology textbook pictures. They burned the hairs inside my nostrils, and salt and ink that rubbed off my palms. Under clippings of the moon at 2:45 a.m., I study and repeat. Ribosome, endoplasmic, lactic acid, stamen. At the IHOP on the corner of Powers and Stetson Hills. I repeated and scribbled until it picked its way and stagnated somewhere I can't point to anymore. Maybe my gut. Maybe there, in between my pancreas and large intestine, is the piddly brook of my soul. It's the ruler by which I reduce all things now, hard-edged and splintering from knowledge that used to sit, a cloth against fevered forehead. Can I let them both be? This fickle faith and this college science that heckles from the back of the classroom? Now I can't believe that the Bible and Quran and Bhagavad Gita are sliding long hairs behind my ear like mom used to, and exhaling from their mouths make room for wonder. All my understanding dribbles down the chin onto the chest and is summarized as life is merely to ovum and sperm and where those two meet and how often and how well and what dies there.
Thank you, Sandra, who is a beautiful spoken word artist, for reading that poem about life, death, and the self. This month is about coffee or imperative beverage. So I want to think about two things. What does it mean for something to be imperative in our lives? And also, just for fun, if you were a beverage, what beverage would you be? So those are my two opening questions for us. What does imperative mean to you? And if you were a beverage, what beverage would you be? You can feel free to share your answers in the chat. It's just a time to maybe do some quick writing, maybe get inspired by some of the answers here. I'll give everybody a moment to respond if you would like. Our readers, in order of when they'll read, are Salena J Deane, Adam Breier, Chris Campbell, and Erica Gill. I'd like to introduce Salena. Salena runs a non-for-profit, which hopefully you can talk about more later, the Poetry Pour. I'd love to hear more about what you do. She's an all-around artist and a dancer as well. Welcome, Salena. We'll start with you and your poem or short poems that you'd like to share.
Yes, thank you, Rachel. Really happy to be here. And thank you, Sandy, for starting us off on a really reverent and reflective note. Um, when I got the invitation to read, this theme really spoke to me as a person who struggles with alcoholism, and alcoholism runs in my family. The imperative beverage that used to be a really huge part of my life was alcohol. And I'm grateful to say that I'm now almost a year sober. But this poem comes from that. I'm going to read a poem called Recipe Number One, Bruised Mary, and it is in the form of a cocktail recipe. Recipe number one, Bruised Mary. Ingredients: half social battery, 2 ounce absolute chaos, 4 hours mingling, 1 dash depression. Preparation: add dash of depression to mingling and swirl. Squeeze social battery atop absolute chaos. Expect a full fizzing frenzy to occur. Let settle before adding ice. Garnish with contusion and serve curbside.
Thank you for sharing that with us, Salena. You already talked a little bit about why you chose that piece. You can expand on that if you would like, and we'd also like to hear a little bit about what beverage would your writing journey be?
Yeah, I think I've said what I needed to about the poem, but it does come. I recently put it in a collection with two other recipe style poems in a zine that I'm calling Spirits on the Rocks. And I do have copies of that available that I'll hopefully be able to sell soon enough. But in terms of a beverage that I really have been leaning on in terms of my recovery and being sober, it's definitely been really highly caffeinated teas. And so I'm a big, that has become my imperative beverage now that I'm sober. And in terms of my writing journey, I think that for me, I think about a golden milk latte because it's spicy yet comforting and it's good for my health. And I feel the same way about poetry. So,
Great, very well said, Salena. Okay, Spirits on the Rocks, and you'll send me that information so I can share it.
yes, yeah, definitely.
Good. Our next reader is Adam Breier. Okay, I was going to talk about your chapbook, but we recently discussed, Adam and I, that he might be going in a different direction with his publication. So I'll let him talk about that. Adam is an educator, writer, and photographer who works in black and white of New York City sometimes, which, if you've been here before, you know is my special, what I love the most for photography. Okay, Adam, we're excited to hear your pieces.
Thanks, Rachel. And thanks so much for inviting me to read in this forum, and certainly for this theme. It was very easy for me to pick out some poetry that addressed coffee in one way or another. So I'm going to read two brief pieces, and then I guess we'll chat for a little bit. And I'll certainly talk about what's coming up for me as a writer. So, first poem, A Regular Please. Online, waiting, remembering when you could ask for a regular please and get a hot paper Parthenon cup of sugar creamy coffee. But now, a tall, beige cardboard skirted cup of too hot, too black, exotic and dark, neither milk nor sugar, with the mere expectation of a regular unheard of. Standing at the self-serve station, fixing his own cup, he wonders at those adding tips as they pay more and more for less and less. Not subtly about coffee. And in this one, coffee plays a role. This next poem is titled Any Ounce of Balance. When the rage, because they were out of egg sandwiches, brought juice instead of coffee and looked at me like that, pushed me into a pool of mental milk and marbles, I stayed there treading for hours, barely afloat, a passive participant, feeling 4 fathoms away and 5 seconds behind. When I emerged, drenched with the weight of an extra ounce of balance, I could walk steady, think clearly, see the protests, the masked, the murdered, hear the stolen, starving souls telling me where to go. But then, being just an ounce, the sun dried it up. Thirsty again, I entered a cafe where, seeing empty bins that once held sugar, next to unkempt carafes adorned with coagulated crusty cream, I lost my balance and tripped back in. Thank you. So Rachel mentioned my chapbook, and thank you, much appreciated, titled An Odor of His Own. It's a decade old, and I gave it a good thorough read through and decided to do two things, rework it and also focus on putting out a new chapbook. I have a number of poems that I've written about, for which I'm proud, that have mostly been published already in a number of journals, some not published. So I will soon hopefully be putting out another chapbook, which I'll certainly tell you about, Rachel.
Okay, great. So do you want people to go buy an
Uh,
odor of his own,
thank you for
or are
asking.
we not buying that?
An Odor of His Own is no longer for sale.
Okay.
I might rework it and put it back out, and I might chop it up and take pieces and put it into a new chapbook. The new one I'm definitely working on.
Okay, that's where you landed.
But people can certainly visit my website to see links to all of my published pieces.
Great. Wonderful. You can put your website in the chat so people can access it. And when you decide and are ready, I'll share your chapbook or chapbooks in the future.
Thank you so much.
Our next reader is Chris Campbell. Chris is up to a lot of things and has won many awards, but this is his newest book, Why I Wear My Past to Work, put out by Parlyaree Press. Oh, sorry, because I get blurry. I really like this book. This is meant to be a little bit facetious, but I learned that men have feelings and also go through insecurities by reading this book, which I thought was a condition of being a woman, but it turns out that that's not true. Okay, Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
I'm glad to hear that you got that from it. I'm going to read a couple of short poems from the collection. Slightly different topics, themes, but they both reference coffee. So the first one is after I spent a few weeks in hospital, and it's called The View from This Hospital Window. I admire an empty bench for hours. Then a glum couple sits to share strawberries. A pensive man Pat's his Jack Russell. Yogurt white sky. Life's brighter now. I slurp weak coffee, push away the lunch tray, read TV listings. Through the door, I hear nurses ponder patients. My name. I stand as glass amplifies the sun. And the next one I'm going to read, I used to live in Bristol, and I was very close to kind of a high street in the area that I lived, and it was the longest high street in Europe for the number of independent shops and cafes that it has on it. So this is called How This Cuban Shop Serves Pachanga. He left Cuba and opened this store with its pulses, nuts, and flowers. Upstairs, a coffee bar, his welcoming daughter deep in lunch specials, pesto, curries, chimichangas, enchiladas. Spices soak up a wet July. Turn this cafe into Cuba, quicker than the tables they wait. As Spanish and African roots vibrate against menus, Pachanga lifts the floorboards and customer smiles below. He must miss the mountains and forests of his island, now captured in framed paintings after 30 years. But this place is a result. The owner of the toy shop next door, also open for 3 decades, points punters towards his friend, this hidden gem. You can't beat those enchiladas. Camaraderie keeps these independents open, holding hands down the high street in a mambo. Thank you. Thanks very much.
Now, I recognize that poem from your book because, well, you don't know this yet, but I wrote a little review about you. And I talk about this poem in the review, but I'm not having a lot of luck getting my reviews picked up. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe you'll see it,
Well,
maybe you
thank you very
won't.
much.
Okay, so tell us about why you chose those 2 pieces to read, and then also tell us a little bit about if your writing journey were a beverage, what beverage would it be?
Well, I picked those 2 pieces because of the coffee references, but also because they were quite sort of different poems in the collection, and the collection kind of touches on fatherhood and relationships from a male perspective, but quite a bit about urban life as well. And then, sort of in the second of the 4 chapters, it kind of details a bit about hospital and kind of illness. So. Yeah, I was in the hospital a few years ago with bacterial meningitis, and kind of very simple things just kind of became quite pronunciated, and it was also during summer, so there was some beautiful weather, and I had this huge. I was lucky enough to have sort of this big window next to me, and I was in my own sort of room in the hospital, and the sun was always sort of coming through, and it was kind of I suppose mentally anyway help me recover. And the other one was just kind of celebration about urban life and differences and people sort of clubbing together, which I think we need a lot more of at the moment. And a beverage. I mean, I always start the day with a quite a strong coffee, and how I make it can dictate my morning really. Either I kind of forget about it and it's slightly burnt and overpowering, and that can sort of affect my mood a bit, or I'm kind of too quick with it, impatient, and it's kind of a weak coffee, which is never a great start to the day. And I always like a hot drink in the evening, and Ovaltine is something my wife introduced me to, and I don't tend to like caffeine sort of late on, so a kind of malty, milky kind of warm drink can kind of uh, power me on through I tend to enjoy writing at night, so that kind of keeps me going for a bit in the early hours. So yeah.
Great. Wonderful. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing.
Oh, thank you.
And thanks for your new book.
Thank you.
Our final reader, after our reading, we have some time for some EICs to talk to us a little bit as well. Our final reader is Erica Gill. They published their first full collection of poetry in April. So, oh, you're coming up on your 1 year anniversary of your book. Oh, time really flies. That's exciting. Lone Yellow Flower. I don't have it with me because it lives at my library. They have it over there. Oh, you have it. Good. Lone Yellow Flower. It's a very beautiful book. I love it, especially as an idea of an introduction to a writer as a person. We really get to know Erica through the words. I've read it a few times. Okay, Erica, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Rachel. That's really special. Um, this poem is called Coffee and Strawberries. I picked it because I write about coffee a lot, actually, surprisingly, but I drink coffee a lot. But this one is specifically about the experience of drinking coffee. So, coffee and strawberries in the hot lateness of afternoon make strange bedfellows in my gut. Acid and bile rise. What humors? Black and yellow, melancholia to erode, choleric to inflame. My anger and sadness at this latest disappointment, a millstone at my neck. Toss me in the mossy pond. My craft would make me float, but I've declined to continue opting for this wooden half-life, staring into middle distance, cold ceramic mug to lips, bitter then sweet, the bright red skin split in due time, past time. I hope the thousands of tiny black seeds take root in the miles of twists and turns, an undiscovered utopia, already state colonized and staked, each time I let them in my body. A water wheel turning each time. I rise and fall each revolution. My spirits break over it, and I return again to the bottom. But it is early summer, and bereft of you, the berry yield is high and bright, and the coffee never runs out. Thank you. It's interesting to revisit this poem. I haven't read it in a while, and there's so many things about it that strike me as personal, as Rachel referred to. I reference some archaic medical misinformation about the humors. I've been really interested in things like alchemy and ancient medicine and just how people kept themselves alive before we had antibiotics. It's also, like much of my poetry, about depression and relationships, and mental health is a very, I don't know, I guess, present element of my writing.
Yes, I remember that poem from your collection. Also, I talk about it. Sandra's saying she can't hear me. Can you hear me? Okay. Also, I talk about that poem in a review I did for you, Erica, which again, maybe we'll never see, but I'll send it to you if nobody picks it up. If your writing journey were a beverage, what would it be, Erica?
It's a good question. I think it would be probably like a double espresso or maybe a latte, something that takes a little bit of doing. Um, I think that, like making a handcrafted coffee drink, which I have to do a lot. I work at a restaurant and we have an espresso machine. It's horrible. And maybe, oh, okay, I take it back. It's a decaf cappuccino when the milk won't foam. Um, it's one of those things that, like, I've done so many times, but when it's not working, it's just not working. And when it is working, it's spectacular. Um, but yeah, great question. And thank you again for your invitation.
Great answer. As anybody who's worked in the service industry, that answer hits home. Adam, I think I skipped you that question. Sorry, I'm having kind of an off day, y'all. Sorry. But Adam, I don't think we asked you about your writing journey as a beverage.
Overly predictably, I'll say coffee. I can speak to how vital it is that I have my coffee every day. Even when I'm going to a meeting and I know that coffee will be served, I still make my own and bring it with me because it's very important that it be right and the kind that I want to have. And even though I don't think I've gone a day without coffee since my late teens, I can speak to periods of time when I was not writing, when life said, slow down, you have to focus here. And I think about what it would be like to not have coffee and not writing. Turns out it feels a lot like that. Because now that I'm back in the writing world again, and I had not been in it for a number of years, I feel like I'm having my coffee again. I tried to bring it full cup. Sorry, that was a bad one. Full circle.
Okay, great, Adam. Thank you. We can all tell that you're in academia.
Oh, this is my work account, the doctor. Sorry. That
No,
was
just
not
everything you
intentional.
said was very relatable from an academia standpoint. So I do see some EICs I know here, and if I don't know you by your name, you can speak up. I see Kirsty Ann Richards. I also see Andrew Baker, and I see Stephanie Lamb. So I'll give you an opportunity to speak if you would like to. I'll start with Stephanie. Stephanie, can you tell us a bit about your press? And also, you have a few calls out right now.
Yeah, can you hear me okay? Okay, perfect. Then I picked the right mic when I set this all up. Um, yeah, my name is Stephanie Lamb. I'm with Quillkeepers Press, and we are an indie publisher. We do a lot of anthologies. We hold 2 chapbook competitions a year for spring and for fall, so we have those coming up. One of our anthologies is actually up for release on January 20th. It's All the World's a Page, and it is a Shakespearean sonnet inspired anthology with artists worldwide because I felt like, for me personally, Shakespeare has been a very big part of my writing journey. I reference a lot of his work in my own work. So this was just kind of a fun way to reach out with the community and kind of connect with other like-minded people and artists. So that's coming up, like I said, January 20th. Right now, we are accepting submissions for our next chapbook competition. We're still accepting subs for our Unfinished Conversations anthology, the Metaphorically Speaking anthology, Steal from Somewhere, and one coming up, which we have not announced, which will be titled How We Learned to Leave. So that'll be more towards mid-year. We'll start get that out. So yeah, would love if everybody came. The submissions are free. You can find us on Submittable. You can go to our website, quillkeeperspress.com, and find us there as well. We're always happy to connect. So please do find us on social. Come.
Great, Stephanie. And can you give us like a tip, like what's something that comes across and you're like, yes, I want that?
With poetry, it is usually that first and that last line for me. Something that I always say it like, I love a poem that will grab me by the throat and then dare to not let go, and keeps me captivated, has that last line that just keeps you wondering and keeps you thinking about it, keeps you digesting that poem.
Great, good tip in general, really. Stephanie, sorry, I have this really short story. I had a friend in elementary school that was like a frenemy, and her name was Stephanie Lamb. And I had this like karmic fear that it was you when I came across, and I was like, oh, could this be happening? I shouldn't have been so mean as a little girl, but it wasn't. A different Stephanie Lamb.
No. No, we connected and it all felt very organic, which I love. So thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you
so
for
I did
holding
some
this space
contemplating
for us.
about my, childhood and behaviors.
It
Okay,
had
I'll
to be
turn over.
funny.
I'm going over to Kirsty Ann Richards.
Hi everyone. So my name's Kirsty Ann. I run a press called Red Rose Thorns, which is a feminist literature literary publication, where we publish work centered around mental health, self-care, gender, and sexuality. Right now we have a few things going on. So the main publication that we have is our Red Rose Thorns Journal, which is an online journal publication, and we publish literature in any genre, any style around those subjects and themes. It's basically the foundation of our publication. And then we sort of branch off from that, and we have a quarterly print publication, which the submissions will open up next week for that publication. And that's a literary magazine centered around self-care and how self-care is a form of liberation and also just um, like a political act of resistance, I would say. And then, of course, which I'll also put in the chat here really quickly, but we have signed on Rachel as for our book acquisition. So she is going to be published this spring. It's a book of poetry all around sort of womanhood, and I would also say there's a lot of like self-care, mental health, gender elements to it as well. She just speaks of like oh, she says it so much better than me, but really what it is like to be a woman, like what we go through with imposter syndrome or what we go through in terms of representation in society. It's a really beautiful book. But I put the link in there. So if you do want to follow along for that whole journey, like please do sign up to our newsletter and you will learn more about our publications and more about Rachel and more about everything that we do. And that's it.
Thank you. And what's something that comes across your computer and you're like, yes, I'm going to accept that?
I think if it's, I mean, similar to what Stephanie was saying, it's something that really, if something is, I hate to use the word original because every piece is original, but I think like the more sort of like out there you are, the more challenging something is. I think the more like risque, I suppose. Those are the pieces that really stand out, that I just want to pounce on them, and hope that they don't publish anywhere else. But I don't want to say original because all the pieces are original, but if you just think of something, that isn't something that you haven't heard of before, something that you are craving to read or see that isn't really out there, I think that's the ones that I want the most.
Great. Thank you for sharing. And I look forward to seeing you in May. We'll be doing an in-person event somewhere in the world. We're still working on that.
Well, I think, yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and it'll be fun to sort of meet in person because so far it's just been online, which is really weird. But yeah, I'm really excited for this whole project. Just FYI, that's all.
Great. Thank you. Okay, I see Andrew Baker here from Parlyaree Press. Oh, look, I have your book right here as well. One of your books. Okay, tell us about your press and your open call.
Yeah. Hi. So we are Parlyaree Press. We are an independent queer-run press out of Atlanta, Georgia. We just started a couple years ago, but we've had the pleasure of working with two of the readers today. We published Chris Campbell's Why I Wear My Past to Work, and we are also working with Rachel on her upcoming Retired Wannabe Club Kid, which is just an incredible memoir-esque poetry collection that chronicles decades of her life in the international club scene and finding herself and love. And yeah, it's a really wonderful collection, and we're really excited to have that coming out this spring. Um, we Sorry, I'm a little unprepared. When we're looking at submissions, we, like everyone else has said, look for something that's new and exciting, but that also feels like we know it. We've connected to it already. It's just stated in a way that is at once surprising and feels like home. So that's really what we look for when we're going through our submissions. Yeah,
Great. And you do, thank you, Andrew. You're taking chapbooks and full length,
we
right?
are. Yes, we
Okay.
do
Are you also
poetry.
looking at fiction?
Yes,
Okay.
we do poetry, fiction, chapbook length, in both poetry and fiction. A new thing that we're starting with our fiction is if poets can release smaller chapbooks, why can't fiction writers? You know, a lot of fiction writers have been forced to have a short story collection that's of a length. So we're kind of looking at fiction chapbook style as well right now, and we've got a few in the works that should be coming out soon.
Yes, great. You've been busy down there in Atlanta. I've seen you have many things coming up. Great.
Yes.
Wonderful. Yeah. And submissions are free and you have a team that looks at them as well. So people can check
Correct.
that out.
Yes. Submissions are always open. We try to get back to everyone in about 4 to 6 weeks, but just ongoing. Send away, please.
I'm learning a lot from working with Andrew. We've gotten pretty far in this book, even though it's not the first one I'll have coming out. And I've just been learning so much from you, Andrew. You've been so helpful and so patient, especially when I harass you with my with my ideas I get in the night.
Those are the best. Those are the best.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I also want to do a little shout out to Candace Kelsey, who has a new book out, Another Place Altogether, with Kelsey Books, not the same, not related to her at all, just a similar name. That came out in December. That's very good. I've been reading and rereading that. Maybe one day you'll read my review of it. We'll see. Are there any EICs that I missed? Somebody whose name I don't know. I want to say thank you very much to Sandra. Oh, sorry, Erica. Okay. I don't know that much about your press. It's alternative milk. Is that right? Okay. Yeah. Tell us about that.
Sorry, no, it's totally okay. It's been on hiatus for a while. So we're gonna have our next issue out soon. I'm kind of taking a page out of a friend's book with their press and just publishing asynchronously because life happens. But Alternative Milk Magazine is an independent literary mag. We publish people from all over the world, really try to focus on marginalized communities and underrepresented voices. But we publish everyone, and it's really hard to narrow down our specific readership, or not readership, our specific contributorship based on like criteria, because it's really just all my taste, what I like. But we're going to be open for our first submittable call in March during AWP. Which is in Baltimore this year. I'll be there. If any of you are there, please come find me and say hello. I love meeting people in the wild. But this is going to be our first submittable call, so I'm really anticipating an avalanche. So it'll be really good. I'm really looking forward to seeing what people bring. A lot of things that really, when they come across my desk, that I really love to see are sci-fi and fantasy elements, anything supernatural, anything mind-bending. I really like magical realism. I like to see a lot of mundanity. I really love Chris Campbell's poem about the restaurant. I love just to see the little pieces, snapshots of people's lives, but in an engrossing kind of exploratory way. So yeah, thank you.
Great. Okay, we'll look for that in March. You're going to have that call.
Yes. And then our issue number 3 should be out in the next few months. I'm so reluctant to say a date, but our first 2 issues are available to read for free online at altmilkmag.com. I'll post that in the chat, and you can kind of get an idea of what sort of things we like.
Great. Thank you, Erica. And I want to say thank you to Sandra for reading Renee's Good poem for us, particularly because Sandra is just such a beautiful spoken word artist. Like, I just really admire that because I can't speak, and I also didn't know how to pronounce any of the words in Renee's poem. So thank you so much for reading that for us. Next month on February 14th, we're looking at erotic writing. So we'll have a little bit of time to talk about like how to get started if you haven't written in erotica, and we'll be talking about food erotica. Don't worry, it's not going to be weird or, R-rated. It's just going to be fun poetry. And after that event, I'm doing a co-book launch with some friends. So please put on your calendar this same time, February 14th, for Poetry and Brief. And then on the hour after that, this co-book launch that I'm doing with a couple of other women in our community. So I'll share more about that once we get that all lined up. You are welcome to stay to chat if anybody has questions or comments. Otherwise, we will conclude Poetry in Brief, Coffee or Imperative Beverage. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.